All right, the storm season marks the 25th anniversary of Hurricane Andrew. The Category 5 storm roared ashore in August of 1992 and became one of the worst natural disasters in Florida history. Entire communities in South Florida were flattened, but through the devastation came remarkable stories of survival. Bay News 9's Laurie Davison traveled to South Dade County to talk with a family who put their lives back together, one brick at a time.
Yeah, baby!
South Florida has a vibe all its own.
Laid back.
Amazing. Fantastic.
The weather is warm.
Fun in the sun.
The water is clear.
The ocean's as blue as you can imagine.
And the beaches are full.
Yeah, baby! Super happy. No worries in the world.
But 25 years ago, an unwelcome guest named Hurricane Andrew crashed the party.
Yeah, it was hard. It was very hard.
Bill Zinn and his wife Sandy look back on August 24th, 1992 with a mixture of pride and pain.
I don't think I ever cried as much as I did following this storm.
The couple was at home with their children when Hurricane Andrew hit. As the family huddled under a mattress, their son Ian rolled on a tape recorder in his pocket.
Holy shit! The roof just came off.
All right.
Okay.
It's all right. We're underneath the mattress. We're fine.
When we crawled out of the mattress, it's kind of a blur, really. We just kind of wandered around, I guess, more or less in a fog.
Realizing their home was gone.
It's hard to go through to see everything you own basically destroyed.
There are still remnants of Hurricane Andrew here in the Zinn's neighborhood, like this concrete slab that sits where a house once stood right next door.
You just deal with it. You just move on.
For the Zinns, moving on didn't mean moving away. Instead, they rebuilt on the exact same spot.
It's nice to see, what we got now versus where we were.
These are all pictures from Andrew.
The new house even includes a wall of remembrance dedicated to the storm.
Our house, we stuck together and we made it.
Just as the Zinns survived, so did South Florida, giving them reason to celebrate a community even stronger than before. In Miami-Dade County, Laurie Davison, Bay News 9.
The Zinns hope Hurricane Andrew was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, but they still make a hurricane kit, prepare every storm season, and urge everyone else to do the same. We're going to go live to Bay News 9's Laurie Davison. She was visiting with a family in Riverview right by the Alafaya River, practically their backyard, who decided they would not evacuate. They would just basically survive the storm at the house. Laurie, how are they holding up?
Well, Veronica, there's actually several families who have decided not to leave here, and we are at a different house. This time we are at Chuck and Sue's house here along the Alafaya River, and Chuck's actually holding a flashlight so you can get a look at these trees behind me. The weather has definitely picked up out here in the last 2 hours. In fact, we're getting a gust right now. Look at that. Look at that, what you are seeing. Huge gust happening right now live on the air. You can see the tree there really swaying in the wind. The rain bands are beginning to come in. It is dark, but again, we've got him holding that flashlight, and you can see some of the activity out here. Now, the Alafaya River was very, very low a couple of hours ago. That was very interesting to see. There was just lots of sand outside. Again, more gusts coming on out here. Now, we do have some video to show you of when it was still light outside from the other house that we were at. They had a screened-in porch, but again, a lot of tree action there, trees swaying in the wind. He had a boat that was actually tied up very tight, but it was beginning to get loose and starting to sway. They had several people there at the house going to ride this out. In fact, we talked to one girl who was there. She left her house in Apollo Beach and is not sure what she's going to go back to. Here's what she had to say.
I felt like I was saying goodbye to my home, which was kind of devastating because I don't know if it's going to be there when I get back. I didn't have time to board anything up, sandbag anything. I mean, it was crazy. I just didn't really know. Put everything up high and say goodbye to my home if it's even going to be there when I get back.
And that is what a lot of people really are dealing with tonight. Now, Chuck and Sue told me that they actually started prepping their house here 3 days ago. They started bringing things in from downstairs. We are up on the top floor of the house, but they brought in a lot of furniture. They did some work on their dock to secure that. They brought some cars in. They brought some boats in because they just wanted to be careful. Now, the other thing that I do want to show people, and Tim, let's move over here to your left and show folks how dark it actually is over there. We understand that a lot of people out here in this area have lost power. Sue says that she's talked to some family members and other folks, and they've told her that they have lost power out here. It is very, very dark, so we are assuming that people have either evacuated or they have lost power in this area. Now, the big thing that they are worried about out here is the storm surge, because obviously these homes are on the water. So that is something that they will be watching throughout the night. Most of the folks here told me that they are not planning on getting a lot of sleep tonight. Most of them also do have generators, so if they do lose power in these homes that we're at, they will have those generators, but again, they are not planning on sleeping tonight as we wait this storm out. Reporting live in Hillsborough County, Laurie Davison, back to you.
Now, the latest breaking news.
It is 10 o'clock and I'm Melissa Eichman in for Veronica Cintron. Our top story this hour on Bay News 9 continues to be that Pasco County sinkhole. Bay News 9's Laurie Davison kicks off our live scene coverage at 10:01. Laurie, what's the latest out there?
Well, Melissa, they did just put a fence up around the area, so it's a little harder to see here in the dark. But this is being called one of the largest sinkholes ever in Pasco County. The good news is that they think that it stopped growing, although they say if we do get some rain in the next few days, that could change. As you mentioned, this is also now being called a hazmat situation because of all the septic tank damage out here. It's basically being called a catastrophic situation. Early Friday morning, a large sinkhole opened on Ocean Pines Drive, swallowing a boat and 2 houses. Deputy Jay Murphy was one of the first people on the scene. He says one house was vacant, but he had to rush into the other one to help an elderly woman escape.
At this point, it had spread quite quickly. We were able to see suction coming in where foam from the top was being pulled under the ground, and at that point, large chunks of the ground were actually caving in.
On top of the homes that were destroyed, 9 others are perched on danger and have been evacuated. Geologists estimate the sinkhole is about 225 feet wide and 50 feet deep. Right now, it appears to be contained.
We're going to continue to watch it, but it's going to need to stay dormant for 24, 36, 48 hours before we can start doing anything else.
Anyone who doesn't live in the neighborhood is being asked to stay away.
These people in this community do not deserve to have people come from the outside and put more stress on them.
Emergency crews will be monitoring the sinkhole around the clock until they're sure the rest of the neighborhood is on steady ground. And they say that this will not be a quick fix. They are going to be moving into what they call recovery mode now over the next few days, but they say that they expect to be out here cleaning this mess up for at least a month. Reporting live in Pasco County, Laurie Davison, Bay News 9.
Now on Spectrum, Bay News 9. Could it be a break in the Seminole Heights case?
I'm optimistic on this one, but only time will tell. We have a lot of work to do.
That's the message Tampa police has tonight, following up on a tip about a man with a gun at McDonald's. That man being questioned tonight. Spectrum, Bay News 9's Laurie Davison is joining us live at 10:01 from Ybor City. Tell us more about all the commotion at this McDonald's earlier today, and where do we stand at this point?
Well, I tell you, Veronica, it's really been quite a night. Tampa police have been out here for more than 6 hours now, collecting every bit of evidence that they can. In fact, just a couple of minutes ago, they finally towed away the car that the man that they're talking to was driving. A lot of people were out here earlier also watching all of this unfold. You know, the Seminole Heights killer has really had people in this entire city on edge for more than a month now, and tonight they are really hoping that this is finally a break in the case. A McDonald's in Ybor City became the center of the Seminole Heights murder investigation. Someone called in with a tip that the man police have been looking for may be at the restaurant with a gun.
You know, we treat everything like it's going to be the real deal.
A man was taken in for questioning only. A gun was recovered at the scene, but police don't know yet if it's connected to the killings. We also saw police taking suitcases and what looked like a sweatshirt out of the trunk of a car the man was in. Still, Chief Dugan cautions against jumping to any conclusions.
So we have to be very careful what we release because this person might be completely innocent, and that is the way we have been going about this. You know, I'm optimistic on this one, but only time will tell. We have a lot of work to do.
Meanwhile, nearby in Seminole Heights, friends of the fourth victim, Ronald Felton, are watching the investigation closely.
Yes, I'm praying that within the next, day or so that they'll come back and say, this is it, he is the one. So we're praying for that and just, keeping our fingers crossed.
But they're not letting their guard down, realizing it's too soon to know whether this is the night the nightmare ends. And police did keep up their patrols in Seminole Heights tonight, but I understand that we may be getting some new information, and Veronica has more on that. Veronica, I'll throw it back to you.
Welcome back. I'm Veronica Cintron. Our Black History Month celebration continues tonight. Long before the Greek divers were working the sponge docks in Tarpon Springs, African Americans were already laying the groundwork. Bay News 9's Laurie Davison has more in tonight's special assignment.
Ladies and gentlemen, tickets here, guys, for our next sponge boat ride.
Taking a tour of Tarpon Springs.
Folks, you interested in a boat ride today?
Is like visiting Greece.
Anybody want to go sponge boat ride? Have a boat going out.
Without ever leaving Florida. A mix of the showy and the cultural. A place where you can climb on a boat.
Welcome aboard.
And soak up history. Whoa. In a city known as the sponge capital of the world. It's an industry dominated by the Greeks here. But dive in deeper and you'll find African Americans were among the first spongers in the region. They were called hookers for the techniques they used.
What they did in the early days before the Greeks came, sponges were harvested entirely by hooking them with a long hook from dinghies.
The city's curator of arts and historical resources, Tina Bukovala, says in the early 1900s, Greek immigrants arrived in waves. Using diving methods, they were able to harvest 5 times as many sponges, eventually taking over the docks.
Many in the African American community went to work on their boats, often as crew members, engineers, cooks, but some as divers as well.
These are people that I knew personally.
Alfred Quarterman remembers it all. Walking through Rose Cemetery, he points out dozens of graves that belonged to blacks who worked in the sponge trade, including his father and uncle.
And believe it or not, they both spoke Greek fluently. Because after all, if you're on a boat for 2 months or so back there, you better understand something that's going on.
Alfred recalls a closeness between the two communities.
I have never had a problem with Greeks because when my father went out on the boat, it was not unusual for the families to invite me over to their house. That's when I learned about goat cheese, feta they call it, and spaghetti, and Greek candy.
Most of the African American spongers are gone now. Their contributions marked in gravestones at the cemetery. But Alfred is keeping track.
Thomas Stout, Florida, Reuben Smith, Bahamas, Thomas Knowles, Florida, John Johnson, Johnny Johnson, Frank Fisher.
He worries about their impact being forgotten.
And you'd hate to see anybody that lose their identity because nobody thought about them anymore.
So he's working to have the cemetery designated as a National Historical Site.
And when I see the history of my father and my uncle, I'm very proud of that, and I love it.
The pioneering spirit of those early spongers still living on in people's hearts and minds on the docks to this day. In Tarpon Springs, Laurie Davison, Bay News 9.
2 days work.
And historians say the hooking techniques used by the black sponge divers came from the Bahamas and West Indies. Many of them started working in the industry in Key West and then migrated to Tarpon Springs in the late 1800s.